Welcome back, everybody, to the School Leadership Show. This is Mike Dowdy with me, as always, co-host Jen David Lang. Forgot the adjective, was thinking about it ahead of time, but never added it. Sorry. Hi, Jen.
Adjectiveless Jen. Hi, Mike. Always good to see you, with or without adjectives.
With or without adjective, we're adjectiveless today. So this is a mini-sode, and we have a special topic for today. You want to just kind of remind people what the point of these are?
Sure. Well, we're going to keep it short, right, Mike? We said we'll try.
You said that last time. It didn't go so hot.
All right, we'll try harder. Anyway, the idea is, I think we're up to number 4. We are talking about must-read books for school leaders, and on my website, themainidea.net, I have about 8 topics that school leaders are interested in, and I've chosen about 3 or so books that I recommend in each of those topics. So today we are focusing on teacher supervision and or supervising teachers. And so we're going to talk about 3 books that I really recommend if you want to dive into this topic and you don't know where to begin.
So here we go. The first book, Now We're Talking, 21 Days to High Performance Instructional Leadership by Justin Bader, that he wrote in 2018. So why'd you pick this one?
So the book is a challenge, right? It's like, I'm giving you 21 days to improve your instructional leadership. And it sort of grew out of his work actually doing a 21-day challenge. And he has worked with at that point, over 10,000 participants. I'm sure he has many more now. And basically, it's a challenge to get you into classrooms every day so that you can improve your instructional leadership. So this book, it's not very long, but it has 21 chapters. And each chapter gives you a task for the day. So very clever, very unique. And it's great. A lot of people have done his program and it works. So he's organized these 21 days into sort of 4 weeks. And so the first week is just basically the fundamentals to get you to really understand the importance of why you got to be in classes every day. You know, he says basically you have to be in classes. That's the only way to know what's going on, which teachers are struggling, which teachers need more of a challenge, even what students are struggling with, what PD you need to provide. So you got to get in classes every day. And he sets you up with this first week to do sort of 2 cycles of popping into your teachers' classrooms to have these brief conversational, evidence-based conversations, which are the heart of what he's talking about. So first is just the fundamentals. Then the second week, he talks about time management and organizational habits, right, Mike? Our favorite
that's
topic.
We're big fans of that.
Yeah, which is great. You know, all the 3 books we talk about today weave that in, because if you don't have yourself organized and your time managed, you're not going to get into classrooms every day. So he really talks about how you've got to make this a habit. And what he says is that basically the heart of this program or this approach is to have evidence-based conversations. So he doesn't believe that teachers are going to improve if you just tell them what to do. It's kind of, my analogy is like it's the fish thing, right? You can't just give your teachers fish. You got to teach them to fish. So he says you need to be gathering evidence of what you see when you observe teachers and sharing that evidence, and then having really genuine conversations by asking authentic questions. So he gives a couple of examples, like, I noticed that you, Mike, blah, blah, blah. Could you talk to me how this fits into your lesson or unit? Mike, here's what I saw. How does this compare with what you thought was happening? So he's sharing the evidence and then asking a question. I noticed that students were blah, blah, blah in your classroom, Mike. How did that compare with what you expected to happen when you planned the lesson?
Right. Not the thinly veiled suggestion.
Yes.
Right. Of the, consider doing this, or have you thought about X? Right. I like that idea of starting with the evidence. And then, because they used to teach us, right, it was, make a claim, give the evidence, right?
Right.
You do a great job asking questions. Here's some examples of your questions. No, I like this a lot, because this invites conversation.
It's great, right? And you don't see most of your teachers' classes, so you got to teach them how can they start to see the evidence and ask the question themselves when you're not there. And he's also he's against the whole feedback sandwich too, because that's just giving them suggestions. And yeah, so he doesn't want you to have advice, but basically he wants you to share the evidence and ask the question. And yeah, it's about developing that as a habit. And he has other components about communicating it well, but that's sort of the heart of it, is to change the advice giving into an authentic conversation. That's the heart of what he does.
Very nice. So did you want to move on to the next one, or you want to?
Yeah,
we're crushing it. Yes,
I think so. I mean, unless there's anything else, I mean, like you said, right, that difference between just telling, sort of supervising teachers by telling. The other analogy is it's like teaching by telling. We're trying to move beyond that.
Well, we all know, right? You don't get better unless you reflect on your own practice. So, and you don't do that by just having somebody tell you what to do. All right. So the next one, your friend and mine, Kim Marshall, and his book from 2009, Rethinking Teacher Supervision and Evaluation: How to Work Smart, Build Collaboration, and Close the Achievement Gap. Obviously way ahead of his time, but
yeah,
here we go.
He does have a more up-to-date version. My summary is of the old one, but the basic ideas are the same. And yes, full disclosure, both Mike and I work with Kim. So but we are choosing the book because it is a good one, not just because we work with him.
Wait, let's plug the Marshall Memo just for fun. So if you don't subscribe to the Marshall Memo, you need to do so, because that's where Kim summarizes, I don't know, usually 8 or 10, maybe 12 articles, sends you the summary, and there's an audio version of it, and you might recognize the voice reading it. Okay, go.
Yes,
Jen,
yeah. And then we should also equally plug Justin Bader. You can find him online, and he's always running courses and getting principals to commit and try to observe. I don't know, it's like 300 observations a year, maybe 500. It's a lot.
He's great. He's a lot of fun.
He's fun. He's smart. Yes. And you learn a lot. But yeah, so Kim Marshall. So his idea is that we need to rethink our approach to supervising and evaluating teachers. And he has this amazing graphic where he shows it's sort of like 900 boxes. And that represents the average teacher teaches about 900 classes a year. So with the old traditional approach, right, where you have that one formal observation, you're seeing 1 out of 900 of those boxes. That does not work, right? I think most of your listeners know that the old method of evaluating teachers isn't a way to improve teaching and learning. He gives lots of other reasons. He has like 10 reasons. Obviously the dog and pony show. They know you're coming in, they put on their best lesson, and it's really not indicative of the typical teaching that they do day by day.
Okay, no joke. When I was an elementary principal, I had a 3rd grade teacher who basically had her observation lesson, and she forgot to change it. Like, she had a couple of them. So I saw the exact same lesson 2 years in a row. And let's just say we went in another time, but it was like, wow, you're right. Dog and pony show all the way. So he breaks it down into 4 areas, right? Did you want to get into those?
So he expands it. So he says that teacher supervision is not just about observing teachers and giving feedback. He really says that it's what he calls mini observations, which we'll talk about, but it also involves overseeing curriculum planning, and it also involves overseeing interim assessments, and also making better use of the end of year evaluation rubric. So he's expanding this idea of teacher supervision to be a bit broader than just what the teacher does in the classroom. And to me, the analogy is it's almost like an iceberg, right? So the teacher teaching in the classroom, that's what we see. But there's all this other stuff. There's the planning that goes into it. There are the assessments and those results. And so I like that he broadens teacher supervision to those 4 areas, even though most people know him for, and we'll jump into the mini observations.
I do, like that approach of thinking about it more as kind of building capacity versus supervision for the purpose of evaluation. Like, I think that I like to think we've made that shift in education, but I don't know.
There's still, yeah, I'm working with Kim on a course. There's still a lot of people who haven't yet. But anyway, so the power of the mini observation. This starts from his own experience when he was the principal of Mather Elementary School. And in his 7th year, he briefed everybody that, hey, I'm going to do this. And he started popping into about 4 classes a day with the goal of finishing one cycle of seeing everyone on staff. That's his 39 teachers every 2 weeks. That was his goal. And he read Stephen Covey's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and that also helped him a little bit with his time management and way of thinking about this is a very important task, but it's not urgent the way that fire drills and those things are. So he really had to be very purposeful. And he says this is what makes it work. First of all, one, only stay 5 to 10 minutes. And if you don't believe that you can see something, go out tomorrow and observe for 5 to 10 minutes. And you can really observe a lot in a classroom in that short time.
Even if the teacher's not teaching, like actively teaching, you can still get a lot out of it. I used to just I would go in, and if the kids were working independently, ask a student, what are you working on? What do how is this? What are you learning about? How is what you're doing helping you learn what you're supposed to be learning? And if a student can answer that, I mean, that's worth its weight in gold.
Absolutely. Those are great questions, Mike. Yeah, absolutely. Have some an arsenal of questions that you ask students as well. So he says, 1, keep it short. 2, have a goal for the number of observations a day you want to do. I mean, research shows, right? If you have a goal for anything, weight loss, observing teachers, if you have a goal, you're more likely to achieve it. And then 3, don't go in with a long checklist. Just go in with sort of a short mental list of the kinds of things you'd like to observe. He's absolutely opposed to the principals who go in with the laptop, sit down. First of all, if you're behind a laptop, you can't do what Mike said. Go in and ask, students what they're learning and peek over their shoulder and see what they actually are learning. So he says, just have a few, questions or things that you observe. And then he's really into write your notes up after you leave. Because think about it. It feels like an inspection if you're, writing on a clipboard right there in the class. So those are just some real basics, not complicated. And then he's really into the face-to-face feedback. And I know there are a lot of people who do Post-its or emails, but when you have the face-to-face feedback, this gets back to what Justin Bader was talking about. It's a conversation. If it's a Post-it or an email, then it's you telling them what to do, right? So really keep it to the face-to-face feedback. And then, these other areas that Kim isn't as well known for, but he really believes another key piece of supervising teachers is by examining their curriculum planning. He says very few teachers do curriculum planning well. So it's really only by being involved with the curricular design that principals can truly monitor the instruction that's going on in classrooms, right? And so he has a lot of details about how to do this, but the important thing is to expand our definition of supervision. It's not just observing a teacher and giving feedback, right? It's part of that. What's below the iceberg piece is the curricular planning. And then another part is, we've moved from, in teaching, was it taught to, was it learned? And you can observe teachers all day and have no idea if the students have learned anything. And that's the point, right? So he says, really get involved in the interim assessments that they're giving, go over, look at student results with them. That will show you what the students actually learned based on what the teacher taught. And then finally, a lot of schools are stuck. You've got to do these end of year teacher evaluations, right? And, he for himself, he finds these are just a big time suck and not really effective in improving teaching and learning. So, he suggests to turn it around a little bit and think about ways to use the evaluation rubrics to actually improve teaching and learning. And he's a big believer in have the teacher self-assess on the rubric and you assess the teacher on the rubric, and then you compare side to side. You talk about the ones where there's differences, right? Where did you rate the teacher higher or lower than the teacher, and really use that as a bit of a dialogue. So that's a bit of the Kim Marshall approach in a very small nutshell.
In a nutshell. Love it. And that's, I love that about Kim because he is so consistent. You ask him, what is the most high leverage technique for improving teaching and learning in a school building? And it's mini observations every time.
Yes.
So
Yes.
cool. All right. On our last one, Paul Bambrick Santoyo's book from 2018, Leverage Leadership 2.0, a practical guide to building exceptional schools. So how does this book fit in the context of the other two?
It's, yeah, we're sort of moving, up the ladder a little bit. So he kind of wrote, this is a big book. This is sort of like the Jim Collins Good to Great for Educational Leaders. And when he wrote this, he had worked with over 20,000 school leaders.
I was one of them.
Oh, really? You got to do one? Oh, he's amazing.
He
Yeah.
did a bunch of professional learning for, like, when we did Race to the Top in New York State, they brought him in through state ed, and he did a bunch of work with us. It was cool.
He's amazing. I've been in his sessions too. And so he really worked. He's had a lot of observations in what it takes to make a school go from mediocre or good to great. And so he observed leaders all over the country, and he really pulled out 7 areas of school leadership that dramatically improve student learning. And he calls these levers, right? Because you're able to leverage significantly more student learning out of each school day by focusing in these 7 areas.
And what are those 7 areas, Jen?
So
funny you should ask, Mike.
So predictable. So 4 of them are instructional leaders and 3 are cultural, and we're just going to focus on a few. But the instructional levers are data-driven instruction, instructional planning, observation and feedback, and PD, professional development. But we're just going to focus on the first 3 because today we're talking about supervising teachers. Oh, and just a little aside, he has another book called Get Better Faster, which is also a great book for teacher supervision, particularly if you have newer teachers. He lays out a 90-day plan for what to look for with teachers and how to work with them. I love it. But anyway, so his levers we're going to talk about. So the first one is data-driven instruction, and he has a whole book about that as well. So again, right, we've moved the focus from did we teach it to did the students learn it? So he really believes in not just sitting there with teachers and talking about, oh, this is what I saw in your classroom, but holding actual data analysis meetings. If you ever see videos of him online, right, or other leaders he's worked with, it's the leader and the teacher, and they're looking at data. He believes in having the data with you, close and upfront. And by data, I mean it could be a quiz or a test or an essay, or anything that students have recently produced. And again, he says, when you observe teachers, the leader can only see about 1% of student learning. But if you lead a data analysis meeting with a teacher one-on-one, you can see the results from the last 6 or 8 weeks, right? So it's kind of like observing for those 6 or 8 weeks. And all of a sudden that bumps up to seeing, like, what does he say, 80% of student learning. So yeah, it's really sitting there with the teacher side by side and looking at student work, student results. So that's a big key for supervising teachers well, is that data-driven instruction. The second part is the instructional planning. And he tells a story of a principal who realized that at his school, there was no shared understanding of what quality instructional planning looks like. And Kim said the same thing, that it's rare to find teachers who plan well. So that's a great thing to focus on in your school is, how do we plan? So when you meet with a teacher, he really talks about the importance of supporting unit planning, right? What if you sat down side by side with a teacher and supported that teacher in unit planning, lesson planning? That's a great activity for leaders to do, for teams to do. Let's plan a lesson together. And then really working with your leadership team around how do you coach teachers around planning? Right? We know how to coach leaders around giving feedback from observations, but how do you coach them around planning? And then how do we monitor planning to make sure it's happening, whether it's collecting lesson plans, but really doing it in a way that you're monitoring how the teachers in your school are planning.
And I find that that's a great conversation too, as part of the regular, quote unquote, regular supervision process. If you do a pre-conference with a teacher, I would always ask, how does this fit? How does what I'm going to see when I come into your classroom fit into the curriculum? Like, what came before this? What are you going to do? What's coming after it? How are you going to know they learned it? Things like that.
Those are great questions, and that's great those are great tools to add to your arsenal of teacher supervision skills. So yeah, he's got the data-driven instruction, the planning, and then finally the observation and feedback, but he also has his own twist to this as well. And that is, if he's giving, or if a leader is giving feedback to a math teacher, let's say, rather than just telling them, this is what you're doing wrong, or this is a strategy you should use, he's a big believer in practice. So have the teacher actually practice with you right there, right? If the way the teacher introduced a certain topic and they should introduce it a different way, stand up right here with the two of us and do it again, right? If the teacher wasted a lot of time distributing materials, let's use this whole room as a classroom, and how might you distribute them in a different way, right? Or dial or anything. But it's hard, it's awkward, but if you build a culture where it's expected that part of the teacher supervision is going to involve practice, you can get your teachers used to that idea.
I love that. And that's something that's for school leaders too. I approach things that way. Like if I have to have a difficult conversation with an employee, I'll practice it with somebody first, and so that I can be more comfortable with it, know what I'm going to say. Yeah, it's interesting. As you were talking about that, I'm trying to envision a teacher in my office when I was a principal getting up at the whiteboard and redoing something. I think what a cool idea. Or even to get the teacher to come up with the need to do that, like to be able to say, how might you do it? Ask the open-ended question, and then how might you do it differently? Okay, show me. Let's talk through it.
Yeah. And especially if you have that meeting in the teacher's classroom, so the whiteboard is there, the desks are there, the whole setting. So yeah. And then again, all three of these authors talk about the importance of managing your time. Look to these books.
Yep. Multiple visits, really back. I think you did a great job picking these, I think, because they weave together nicely, and I think, augment one another, because, it's just very, very well done, Jen.
Yeah. Thank you. But yes. And so 3 great books for if you want to improve your skills in supervising teachers. Yeah.
Where do you want to send people to see this information?
So you can go to themainidea.net, and in my menu, I have must-read books for leaders. So you can look there, or just pick up the books, or follow, these 3 incredible authors and practitioners.
Perfect.
All right.
All right. This was an actual mini-sode, Jen. It's like just over 15 minutes, or it's under 20. We're going to go with under 20. I had the stopwatch going because I'm like, we got to keep moving. So well done. Thanks everybody for joining us. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's it. I think we did a great job. Pat on the back.
Right. I love it. Thanks for listening to this episode of the School Leadership Show, a podcast for aspiring and practicing school leaders. Send your comments, questions, and show ideas to me, Mike, at schoolleadershipshow.com. And please consider rating the podcast in iTunes and leaving a comment. And definitely pass the show along to your colleagues.